how much do you know about starting the F-16, or are we doing everything from scratch?
I have started it in the past, but let's do it properly.
Okay, there's doing it properly, which is the full I'm a real pilot and I want to make sure I do all my tests, and then there's the let's get this thing started so we can take off and fly. So I'll give you the latter.
Roger that.
So I'll just use a sequence that I use and I learned right at the beginning. It's not necessarily in the order that anybody else does it, but at the time we found it was the order that worked because of bugs in earlier versions of the F-16, which have probably been worked out now, but I still do it as a matter of course. So first things first, internal lighting panel on the right hand side next to your, just below your stick. You've got the rotary for consoles, instrument panel, your
Data.
data entry display and so on. It's
Roger.
probably not required in daylight, but there are 5 rotary dials there. I just turn them all up to around about halfway, and then you could play with them as you need to. But as it's daylight, there's not a lot of call for it at all.
Roger.
Next, external lighting panel set as required. The default that we operate on normally is, left hand panel.
Yep.
Back from the throttle, closest to the seat, you've got 3 rotary dials, 1 above it, and 3 toggle switches next to that top rotary dial, all called external lighting.
Got it.
Okay, so anti-collision, which is the top left rotary, we put all the way through to program Charlie.
Set.
Our position lights, we toggle down to steady rather than flash, because the AI always use flash, so we use steady so we can see the difference.
Roger.
And then we right click on wingtail to bright and fuselage to bright.
Set.
And the rest of it should be fine as it is. So your formation lighting is bright. Your master covert switch is all the way around to normal. That means everything is in the normal visual light spectrum.
Roger.
The 3 covert settings across the top are not yet properly implemented, and they should be invisible to the naked eye and only visible in NVGs, but it doesn't work yet. So when we go fence in, for example, you have to rotate that dial from all the way to the right to all the way to the left, which is off.
Roger.
Okay. And then the aerial refueling light is set to bright. I don't think I've ever had to change that. So that's your lighting. Next, close your canopy, which is the little toggle switch hidden underneath that bright yellow spider.
Set. Yep. Sapper, can you hear me?
Sorry, I took my finger off the button, my fault. Next is main power. So behind the throttle, you've got the electrical panel, you've got main power toggle switch. It's all the way down to off. 1 click up is battery, 1 click up is main power. You want to go up 2 clicks to main power.
Set.
And you should start to see warning lights come on next to it and around the cockpit. You've now got power.
Got it.
You've got a jet fuel switch forward of the throttle.
Yep.
Which says start 1 up and start 2 down.
Correct.
You should use start 2 down. That's the jet fuel starter.
Done.
And you'll start to hear the whining jet fuel starter firing up, and we have to wait for it to get to just over 20% of engine RPM before we can do anything else.
Yep.
In the meantime, set your parking brake to on, which is on the panel to the left of your left hand, left of your undercarriage lever. You got it? Good.
Yep.
That's because the engine's quite powerful. You could start rolling even at idle.
20%.
Confirm that on your instrument warning panel in front of your stick, you've only got 1 button illuminated now.
Correct.
To the right of that button that was illuminated was a small illuminated message. I can't even remember what it says. I always think it says OK, but it doesn't really matter. That is the confirmation. Once that has gone out, it means that you are now ready to set your throttle to idle. So click it out of the detent, into idle, and that will start up the engine. You'll hear that whining as it fires up.
Yeah, RPM starting to increase. 40%.
Good.
45. 50. 55. 60%.
All your other gauges start coming to life.
Roger that.
Your radio is now working as well, because I just got that coming through my left-hand my left-hand headset. So you just transmitted on UHF. So are you possibly using the same Pressel for both?
Dodge to radio check.
Okay, you're transmitting on uniform, Lima Charlie.
Roger.
Radio check on Victor, which is the channel that we would normally talk to.
Lima Charlie.
Okay, I don't know how you've set up your SRS, but I have my coming into my left ear and Victor coming into my right ear.
I've got you coming in my right ear at the moment.
It's up to you how you set it up, but that's how you need to set it up on SRS. It's not a snitch yet.
Copy that.
Okay, check your illuminated. No, it won't be yet because you haven't switched on all your switches. Okay, go to the right hand panel, right back over your shed. You've got a row of 5 toggle switches and another 2 below and 2 rotary.
Got them.
All 7 of those, flick them on or up. They don't all actually work in this module, but I do them. If you then go to the row of switches right next to your stick, which is the sensor power switches. Again, they don't all work, but as a matter of course, I always flick them because it's something. So left hard point on, right hard point on, FCR on, radar altimeter and up to fully on. All 4 of those are on.
Done.
And as you look forward now, both your headers should be illuminated with whatever's set on them at the moment.
Roger.
Okay, now you've done that, your HUD should be illuminated. If it's not, you look at the ICP with the button interface directly beneath the HUD and rotate the top left dial to illuminate your HUD.
Got it.
Okay, so sort it out. If we've got HMCS, we can set that as well. So you look off to the left and right, you should see your airspeed, altitude, navigation, if it's switched on. If it's not switched on, then you need to go to by your left knee underneath your undercarriage lever, and you've got HMCS, a single rotary dial which says symbolically rotate it right to increment or increase.
Right, got my HMC, yeah.
We won't actually be using it today, but for reference that just needs to be checked. If you're using it, it would be on, or you can turn it right down to off.
Got it.
Okay, we're not using backup radios, we've already established comms, that's fine. Sensor panels, all 4 switches are big. Phonics panel. Okay, so go back to the right. The toggle switches that we flicked up over your right shoulder, we now need to align the jet for the initial state dial. The first click gives you stored heading.
Okay, clicked into stored heading.
You should now see on the data entry display, which is the digital readout to the right of the HUD, at the top of your, just underneath the eyebrow canopy.
Yep.
You should see ILS page, and there's a countdown running.
Yeah, got it.
Says, right, that will go all the way down to 10, and the stored heading is because it assumes remembers where the jet's switched off.
Okay.
The alternative is you have to do a full alignment, it takes much longer. So
Roger.
we do stored heading. In the meantime, while we're waiting, just above the right-hand MFD, I've got your standby ADI. There's a cage knob to the bottom right-hand corner of that. Rotate that until the flag goes. I'll adjust one of those.
Roger, got it.
Again, in the real world we wouldn't do it now, but I tend to, so I don't forget, is I arm the ejection seat next to the undercarriage handle.
Got it.
I then arm the countermeasures system. So to the left of that is a panel of switches and rotaries, and just beyond that, by the aircraft wall, there's a threat warning label.
Yeah, is that the power button?
Yeah, bottom right hand power button. Switch that on, and you'll get a boop 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 come through.
Got it.
You then need to cut the 3 switches running through the middle, which is RWR, jammer, and MWS, although MWS doesn't actually do anything.
Done.
And you need to flick on your chaff and the horizontal run. The other 2, if it ever gets implemented, will be for things like towable decoys and so on.
Alright, chaff and flares are on.
And then finally, mode switch, there's manual. It clicks to manual.
Roger, manual.
And that way, and you'll need, I suggest you'll want to program your flare and what have you to the actual pattern that you want. Because the default is ridiculous. You press your chaff flare release and it just dumps nearly everything in one go.
Gotcha.
But that's for a later lesson. It should now be flashing ready RDY, and you should have a line flashing in the bottom left hand corner of your HUD.
Correct.
Go back to that rotary switch, put it to stored heading and click it 2 more to the right into nav.
Switch to nav.
Look down between your knees and you've got your HSI, your horizontal situation display.
Sorry, I lost that. Sapper, you want to say it again?
HSI between your knees.
Got it.
Effectively your compass rose. Make sure there are no
Sorry, there's no what?
red flags.
Oh, no red flags, correct.
That shows your alignment should be successful, and also on your right hand MF, if it's in HSD, you should be able to see the route marked out as a series of steer points and a route line.
Roger, got it.
So both those things just confirm properly. If you go to your ICP, there's a little toggle switch at the bottom centre which you can flick to the left where it says return, and that will then move your DED back to the normal setting.
Set.
You should now have UHF 269.1 and VHF 127.1, steer point 1, the time, and you've got the TACAN setting.
Roger, got it.
Okay, now we've confirmed that, if you go all the way around to the left-hand panel, and canopy jettison handle against the wall.
Sorry, say that again.
I'm going to do it on Discord because it's usually clear. There's a yellow canopy jettison handle on the side wall of the jet behind the throttle.
Got it.
Okay, if you come down towards you, you've got the IFF panel where there's a big rotary which says off, master, standby, low, normal and emergency. Click that round to the right to normal.
Set.
That means your IFF is now operating. You don't need to touch anything else. It's a single default setting at the moment.
Roger.
If you look at your DED, it should now have additional information in the bottom left-hand corner, which is M, then a 4, then a 1337, which shows you the codes that are entered in the mode.
Affirm.
That confirms your IFF is working. Go round to the right-hand panel, where we were doing the INS alignment. The other rotary switch is your MIDS panel, or panel switch. Currently, it should be in the top center position off. Click it one to the right to on.
Affirm.
If you now go to your right hand MFD, the top button on the right hand column shows XMT off, transmit off.
Affirm.
Click that once. You've now got link 16 so that we are now sharing data.
Affirm. Done.
Okay, what have we not done? I think we've done pretty much everything. At this stage, we would start setting up the jet how we want it. Given this is a training flight, we're not going to be using weapons. The only thing I'd like you to do is set bingo fuel at 3,500. The way to do that, on the ICP, the data input device right in the top center,
Yep.
click on the list button, then 2, and you'll see that's a bingo page on the DED, and there is star either side. It's currently set at £2,000. What I'd like you to do is just enter 3500 and then press the enter button.
Set.
So your bingo is now set at 3,500, which gives us ample fuel. We've got more than enough fuel for this mission anyway.
Roger that.
Okay, next thing. So flick the dobber button back to return, which resets you back to the normal page on the DED.
Affirm.
Now click button number 1 to go into the TACAN and ILS page on the DED.
Set.
Use the dobber to sequence to the right till you get air-to-air TACAN. So A/A TR, transmit receive.
Got it.
Okay, we're going to use a system that's on the F16 you may or may not be aware of, which links the two aircraft together in air-to-air TACAN. So I am going to enter 41 Yankee, and I'd like you to enter 104 Yankee. So what I want you to do is there should be a star next to the BCN.
Correct.
I want you to enter 104, then press enter.
Set.
Then press 0 and enter.
Set.
So what you should see now is where it says BCN, it should say 104, and where it says band, it should now say Y, Yankee.
I've got channel 104 and band Y.
Yeah, that's it. That's what it should be. Sorry, I hadn't actually done it on mine. I was trying to do it from memory.
No worries.
Yeah, now I'm on 41 Yankee, and those are a matched pair of TACAN channels in the air-to-air mode. If you now dobber left, in the bottom right-hand corner of the DED, which is that yellow data display at the top right-hand part, you should see 0.0.
Roger.
That is our distance apart.
Okay.
We will use that as a guide to how far away. So if I ask you to go 1 mile spread right, that'll give you a clear indication of when you're a mile away.
Roger.
And then we'll use the horizontal situation display HSD on the right hand MFD, or left hand if you prefer, just to show our proper alignment. And quite often we'll be operating at 5 miles apart, so we're beyond visual. So we rely on that airborne TACAN between a pair and the HSD to show alignment.
Roger that.
Okay, is there anything else we need to set before we go? Let's just talk through comms. So we operate a comms ladder system. I don't know how you did it in the OCU, but if it was set up correctly, and I don't know how these jets are set up, if I'm honest, it looks like I happen to know that the UHF frequency for the tower here is 269.00, and our UHF is currently set to 269.10, which makes me think that we've deliberately put in a false UHF channel there, which would be Vaziani ground as opposed to Vaziani tower.
Right.
So normally the flight lead would call Vaziani ground and ask for permission to taxi to hold short the active runway. We will never get a reply because there's no live ground, but it's just good practice.
Okay.
We will then do our EOR, end of runway checks, which I'll explain when we get there. We would then switch to the tower frequency, and as lead I would say push uniform stud 2, at which point you press the COM1 button on your ICP, then press 2, then press enter, and that gives you the next frequency, preloaded frequency. And SRS is telling me that's loaded as 26900, which is tower. Once we've gone airborne and done all our communication with the tower, once we're airborne, and we'd be told by the tower then to switch to departures.
So I've got that as 127.1 when I did COM1 2 enter. Is that right or wrong?
Right, let's just go back. What I'd like to do is press the COM1 button.
Pressed.
Then press the number 2 on the keypad, not the COM2 button.
2, yeah.
And press enter.
Okay, I get to VHF 127.1.
That's interesting because that should give you, that should be changing the UHF frequency to 269.
It says here 127.1. It says UHF 2.
Oh yeah, so UHF 2 says it's on channel 2.
Oh, sorry, I'm reading the DID and I'm reading the bottom, not the top. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so it does say UHF 2. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
My mistake.
So I've got SRS displaying the frequencies off to the side of the screen for me, which is probably a useful thing to set up because it confirms what frequency you're on when you've got shortcuts. So where it says UHF2, that just means it's using the second stored frequency, and you don't know what it is because it just says number 2, but SRS will tell you in the corner.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
VHF is showing 127.1, which is the first flight of the Dodge or Ford or whatever the F16 package would be. If you've got another flight, it might be on 127.2, for example.
Okay.
So once we're airborne, switch to departures, then I'd just say push uniform stud 3, and you'd go to frequency number 3, so press COM1, press 3, press enter, and that gives us 269.2, so another made-up frequency, but that's what we would use to practice talking to departures. So we are departing, and when we're 30 miles away we'd say we're leaving your airspace, switching to tactical, at which point we'd say COM1 or push uniform stud 4, and we press COM1 for enter, and that should put us on 251000, which is the normal overlord or tactical channel.
Roger.
So that gives us our situational awareness once we're in the combat area and once we're in the tactical space, and any control measures that are required. But all the communication between the aircraft of the flight will all be done on the Victor channel, on the VHF, which we will leave permanently on 127.1. We don't need to change that unless we need to either join somebody else, regroup with a different flight, or what have you.
Roger.
Okay, so for the sake of completeness, push uniform 1, stud 1. So that should put you back to UHF 1, which is a frequency of 269.1.
Dodge 2, radio check.
Lima Charlie.
Right, sounds good.
Okay, when we're talking on Victor and it's just our flight, then we just use our seat number. So I'll be 1, you'll be 2. When we're talking on uniform, because we're talking to the wider world, either through the tower ATC frequencies, or it might be an air-to-air refueler frequency, or it could be on the tactical frequency, then we use our full call sign if we are calling. So it would be, in this case, Dodge 11 for me, Dodge 12 for you.
Roger.
Okay. The normal comms procedure, we would have done a radio check once everybody's up. I'd make sure you've got your comms on. We've done that already effectively. So the next thing I would be saying to you is Dodge flight, continue startup. Let me know when you're ready to taxi. And you just come back with 2. And
2.
And then, I'm sorry, I'm talking on Discord at the moment because it's just a bit clearer. When you're ready, when you've got everything fired up, the first thing you would do to let me know you've got it all fired up is you'd switch on your taxi light. And once you've got your taxi light on, you just come up on Victor and say 2, ready to taxi.
2 ready to taxi.
The only thing we haven't done is switch on your nose wheel steering. What HOTAS do you operate?
Warthog.
Okay, I don't know if you've got it set up the same way, but I use the nose wheel steering button as the also missile select, which is the forward 4-finger button to the side. Okay, so once you're ready to go, I would then call ground, say request permission to taxi. In fact, let's do it properly. I'll try and do it on the and I will stop using Discord for now.
Baziani ground, this is Dodge 2, flight of 2 F16s, requesting permission to taxi to runway 31, the active. I then switch to Victor and say to you, Dodge flight, taxi and turn 1 is taxiing.
2.
So I just give it a little bit of... You don't have to disengage the parking brake, it will do it automatically. And then I start taxiing. You say, because you could be out of sight to me, 2 is taxiing when you get going.
2 taxi.
It's not to take up too much space, and although the taxiway is not very wide, we do a staggered taxi, so rather than run down the centre line of the taxiway, as you are now, perfect, and then we'll run down towards the EOR where we park up again and do our EOR checks.
2.
The F16 you can taxi up to 25 around. How fast it gets a bit hairy, and you don't really want to be cornering at much more than 10 knots, otherwise you'll tip it on a wing. In order to find out what your ground speed is, you can press list and 6, and then it's displayed in the bottom right hand. I'm now going to turn left and park against the grass for EOI checks. You come and join me on the left.
2.
To safely use the expansion joint 2 away, so that one you're heading for now, put your nose wheel on that and we'll miss wingtips. As you drive forward, at the bottom of your HUD, just above your ICP, there's a sticky out metal thing. If you fly by yourself, then that just lets you know you've still got enough room to turn on the hard surface.
Sorry, say that again. How do I know?
As you look through the HUD, there is a at the bottom of the HUD and above the ICP, the data entry machine, there is a sticking up block with a little name. If you place that at the joint between the hard surface and the grass, that's an indication that you've still got enough room in front of you to be able to steer out on the hard surface.
Right, okay, maybe I got a bit too close then.
You'll be fine because you're still aligned with me. What this jet does not have is the high gain turn that you get on the F16.
Roger. Okay.
Okay, what we tend to do here, I normally flick my parking brake on so I don't roll away, and I can take my foot off the foot brakes, is we do the EOR, or end of runway checks. The very simple version of it is just to confirm three things. One, that we're both recording the same bullseye data. Two, that we've got our data link connection working, which is known as yardstick, and that we're also seeing each other in terms of data link sharing, which is known as dolly. So the process is, if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of your HUD, underneath the word nav, three letters nav, you've got a 3-digit number, a gap, and then another 3-digit number.
Roger.
And we want to make sure they're both the same. So I would say, EOR checks, I have bulls 089 for 155, yardstick suite, dolly suite. So you want to confirm that your numbers are the same as mine. And then yardstick, you should be able to see that you display 0.0 to the bottom left of the DED to show that that's working and registering. Because if either one of us didn't have that set up properly, it would just be a dashed line because you weren't connected. And dolly, if you look at your HSD on the right MFD, I'm assuming that's where yours is.
Yes.
If you zoom in to 15 miles, you should be able to see your blue jet and also a blue circle, which is my jet, virtually co-located.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, that's what is known as dolly. So dolly is sweet, working. Yardstick is sweet, working. And I've given you the data. So your response would be 2 same if everything is right, or you'd explain what isn't. So you might say 2 same less dolly, which is sour, if it wasn't working for any reason.
2 same.
Roger. I would then switch to tower frequency and tell you, hang on, let me do it on the radio instead of Discord.
Push uniform stunt 2. Baziani Tower, this is Dodge 1, Flight 2 F16s, requesting entry into the active runway 31. Dodge Flight taxi and turn.
2.
At this point, we should switch from taxi light to landing light.
2. Two is set.
Okay, what we'll do is a standard departure, so we both taxi onto the runway, I'll take the left hand side, you take the right hand side, and when you stagger, so you cross at my 2 main wheels, one overlaps the other, and that just means you're staggered back from me very slightly.
2.
Okay.
just going back to Discord because it's a more reliable comms connection. I'll just explain our standard takeoff. So the standard takeoff in the F-16, as far as we are concerned as a squadron, of course everyone does it slightly differently, is that we will, on the call from the lead, we'll run the engines up to 90% on the RPM, holding it on the brakes. And then at the appropriate time, I will say brakes, brakes, release. Now we'd either all go, or both of us release at the same time, or I would say we'll have a 3-second delay or a 1-minute delay, whatever it might be, but we'll both go together at the same time today. So we release the brakes at the same time on this occasion, and you put the throttle to full military power and let the speed build up until you start to register speed on the left-hand side of your HUD around about 60 knots, but it will come alive. At which point you need to turn off your nose wheel steering because you will start to get rudder authority, and the nose wheel steering can be a bit sensitive and you can find yourself weaving all over the place with nose wheel steering. As soon as you hit 60 knots and you've switched off your nose wheel steering, you push into full afterburner, you accelerate down the runway and rotate, given the weight we've got on today, probably around about 160 knots or thereabouts. That's a guess. I can't remember what the weight is, but thereabouts. And lift off nice and easy. The jet flies itself off the runway. Raise your gear as quickly as you can once you've got a positive rate of climb, because it's easy to overspeed the wheels if you go too fast. And then we climb out at around about 5 degrees nose up until we hit 300 knots indicated, and then pull back into military power out of afterburner. Continue to accelerate, and our cruising speed is normally 360 knots because that gives us an easy calculation for time and distance. 360, 6 minutes, or whatever, 6 minutes,
So
6 miles a minute.
360 knots, did you say?
Yes, so 360 knots would be our normal cruising speed. So we'll fly out at 360 knots and we'll adjust our pitch up and down to maintain that speed. If we were taking off with a slight delay, then I would throttle back slightly to give you a chance to catch up. So I'd come back to about 90% to give you 10% to play with, so you don't need to use afterburner to catch me. But if you do, then so be it. But on this occasion, we should be able to fly out pretty much side by side. Once you're airborne on Victor, our normal comms channel, you need to just let me know that you're airborne, because I can then inform the tower that we are airborne, the runway is clear, and he can then deal with the next flight, whatever it might be coming in.
Roger.
I will then at some point get us to push to stud 3, which will be departures, speak to them notionally, and then eventually we'll go to stud 4 tactical. So you're happy? Oh, F-16 doing some interesting stuff to the left.
Go in if he's not careful, and there he goes. Bang.
Interesting. What's he? Is he landing on a taxiway there? No, it's just the grass.
It's grass.
That's what I thought. Anyway, okay, so let's have a go. You happy?
Let's go.
Okay, run them up to 90%, hold it on the brakes. Run them up.
2 set.
Pasiani Towers is Dodge Wildlife 2 F-16s departing. Brakes, brakes, release. hold steer point 2.
2.
Are you happy about selecting steer point 2, just using the rocker switch?
I'll just follow my leader.
Fair enough. Right, we're going to push to steer point 3. It'll be quicker. Coming back left. I'm putting back to 95%.
Dodge,
Coming left to the next
request
signal.
order.
2.
Dodge 1-3, Mazani, clear for startup.
Okay, press uniform stub 3.
Dodge 1-3, request tap.
Asiatic departures, this is Dodge 1 flight of 2 F16s. Departing your airspace as flag switching to tactical.
Two.
Okay, I'm going to try and maintain 360 knots, 16,000 feet as we fly to this. You're perfectly capable of flying, that's obvious. It's just a question of practicing our procedures more than anything. So, can you push out into spread 1 mile right?
2. Confirm your heading.
279.
2.
The easiest way to do it as far as this aircraft is concerned is your HSD, so 15 miles, then the top left-hand button, hit the DEP button, and it centres your aircraft on the MFD. It also reduces the range to 10 miles. That means that plus your aircraft on the outside edge of the circle by aircraft, then you're roughly 1 mile positioned, and that can be confirmed by the DED.
I'll have to work that one out later. Right now I'm just trying to get the aircraft to 1 mile and just hold it at 16,000.
Yeah, I'm holding dead on 16 because I've just got the autopilot on.
That's cheating.
Not easy for you though. Okay, attack turn system initiating the turn on my command by doing a 90-degree turn to the left, because we're going to do attack turn left. Flying past and behind me on a new heading 90 degrees left. And then we'll get to the right point so I can then follow the route. So, I reckon we need to do that in about a mile's time. Are you ready? Happy?
Sorry, your comms is crackling.
90-degree left turn, go.
2.
That's not bad at all.
Just a bit of height.
Easily done, but all within parameters. I'm pinching you slightly because you're on the route and I'm off. So we'll do a 45-degree turn right on my command, wait. Very right, go.
2.
Gained a bit of separation there. Okay, I think I can safely say you don't need to do EFT. That's quite I think just a question of learning our procedures, and I'll show you the documents you can read to assist you in doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to come right to you, look at your HSD, and I'll place myself on the route line. I want you to drop back into trail behind me.
2.
I think Dodge 1-3, who's taking off after us, has got you locked up on radar.
Not me.
Just some. You should be able to see a blue dotted line showing that there's a radar lock from one of our call signs.
Roger.
It's not on frequency with us, eh? Can you confirm you're on UHF stud 4?
Negative. UHF 3. I'll switch to UHF
Push
4.
stud 4.
Dodge 2 checking in.
Dodge 1-2, leave it to Charlie. I'm slightly higher, reducing to 16.
How far in trail do you want me?
1 mile, please.
2.
Turning for steer 8. My flying is very inaccurate today. Come on up, echelon left, please.
2.
F16.
Sorry, say that again.
Shaggy is flying the other F16,
Ah, right, okay.
but he's not on comms, not on SRS. Turning left to the next steer point. right to the next steer point. It's all a bit lively around here. Shaggy's dropping in behind you. Coming. Okay, I could probably do it on somebody else.
Sorry, say again?
I'm using Discord. As you say, you're flying a lot better than I would be able to if I was on somebody else's wing.
Thank you.
Okay, next steer point is only 5 miles away, and then it's a very sharp turn all the way back to the left. So I'm going to initiate it now, but do it at autopilot rate, so it'll be nice and gentle. So coming left now. We'll then have a long flight all the way back up to the airfield where we can talk things over and practice some of the stall characteristics of the aircraft, how easy it is to recover, but knowing what to do.
Roger that.
Once we're going straight and level, and we've got a good clearance over the terrain, I will get us both to pitch nose up, about 30 degrees nose up, going in at 360 knots, but letting the speed bleed right off until we start to fall down. You'll have high angle of attack, so I want you to try and keep the nose up. Once you're down to about 150 knots, just let go of the stick. The nose will then naturally drop by itself. Let the speed build back up to 200 knots and then gently pull back towards the horizon. That just gives an indication how easy it is to recover the jet. The basic principle is if you get really slow and it starts to fall out of the sky, just let go of the stick. It will do its own recovery. Get the nose below the horizon, you'll be fine.
Two.
It's going to surprise Shaggy when we do this manoeuvre. You might want to spread out and give ourselves a bit of room because we tend to get a bit floppy at this point.
Roger that. Where
Right,
is
let's.
Shaggy?
He's just off my right wing. Okay, what we'll do is we'll slow to 300 knots.
Slowing.
Are you aware you've got air brakes out still?
Yep.
Okay, we'll pitch up 30 degrees nose up, let the airspeed drop off, leave your throttle set as it is. As it drops off, try and keep the nose at that 30 degrees nose high. As your speed bleeds off, once it's down below 120 knots or so, which is roughly stalling speed, release the back pressure on your stick, let the nose drop below the horizon, pick up speed to 200, then recover back to the horizon. Ready? Okay, nose up, go.
Shaking, release, let the nose drop, below the horizon, recover, let the speed pick up. Knots back up to the horizon. I haven't touched my throttle throughout that at all.
How'd you find that?
Yeah, pretty docile.
Yeah, it's an easy jet to handle. Makes you wonder whether the flight model's very accurate.
They said they've recently updated it, haven't they? With more up-to-date flight data.
That's what they say. Haven't seen any significant changes yet.
Roger that. Well, you guys will be able to tell more than me. You fly it every day.
Yeah, but I've not done much flying in the last week or two, to be honest. So it might have slipped me by. I'm accelerating back to 360. Back to 360.
2.
Descending back to 16, I'm a bit high.
Shaggy seems to have dropped back a bit.
Yeah, I think we frightened him with that manoeuvre. Characteristics of this jet compared to the F-18. I've only flown the F-18 a little bit, but the main one is you've got a very, very powerful engine on the F-16, and it's a light jet, so it accelerates and goes fast and does it high, and you can pull a lot of G at the risk of losing a lot of airspeed.
Yeah,
so
the F-18 doesn't accelerate as well as this does.
No. So, whilst you won't be able to have the same nose authority on this as you have on the F-18 at lower speeds, you can put in some very, very fast turns. So, corner speed for this is anywhere between I think it's around about 380 to 440, something like that. Don't quote those figures, but those are the speeds you want to maintain, and do it by applying the appropriate amount of G, and full afterburner is the norm. So if you want to practice hard turn left and do a full 360, I suggest you drop back into trail and just try and not try and follow me, just follow me round, and you see how it manages. We'll do the first one, just give it full afterburner, stick back into your belly as hard as you can, do a 360 as tight as you can, see what the speed is, and you'll pull a lot of G, but we'll see what effect it has on your airspeed. Then we'll try and do it in a more controlled manner and maintain the airspeed, which is, of course, speed is life in a dogfight.
Do you want to do that with all these tanks on?
It will just limit the amount of G you can pull, that's all.
Okay.
Because the jet should be set up in stores configuration Cat 3. You can drop the tanks if you want to do that. This should be empty by now. Let's do it. Let's dump the tanks. If you just hit the emergency stores jettison button, it will just drop the tanks. Oh, you've done it. Okay, if you just drop back a bit, and we can have a go. So let me know when you're ready, and then I will apply afterburner. You follow me, and then we'll do a stick in the belly turn, see what happens, and we'll return to a heading of 100 degrees.
Two set.
Okay, applying afterburner. 3, 2, 1, and starting the turn now. Bled off a lot of speed, down to about 250 knots. How'd you get on?
Yeah, I was stuck with you.
But you lost a lot of speed, just like me, I suspect.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, this time we'll go afterburner. When we hit 400 knots, which is not far off now, let's go at 450 knots, full afterburner, 450 knots, then initiate the turn and maintain 450 knots using the G, and see if we can do that and what effect it would have. Then we can look at tack view later and see what the turning circle and radius was like.
Roger that.
Okay, going into afterburner now. I'll keep straight and level until I hit 450, then turn. It's about 5G for me.
I'm just sticking with you.
Gained quite a bit of altitude there. I was obviously a bit nose high. I think the interesting bit of that exercise is to have a look at the tack view later from a top-down perspective and see what the circles look like.
Roger that.
Okay, we're still 50 odd plus miles out before we have to start descending. In fact, 30 miles before we start descending. Is there anything else you want to talk about or have me discuss with you?
No, it's been a lot of fun.
So basically, all I've been trying to do is aircraft characteristics and then our own procedures. Aircraft flying and airmanship, you've got in abundance. That's fine, no problem at all. Reducing back to 360. The only thing I didn't do, because I always forget because I'm lazy, is the barometric pressure. I just left it at 2992.
Oh yeah, I noticed. But we got radar altimeter, so it's not too bad.
That's the excuse I always use, to be honest.
It's a good one.
Danny always complains though.
Stickler for detail.
Looks like we lost Shaggy completely that time.
Yep.
Okay, 43 miles to the next steer point, then it's a short hop, then we turn on sort of final towards runway. What we'll do is the 3 squadron overhead brake, which is very different to the F-18 overhead brake if you're used to doing it on a carrier.
Okay. By the way, what steer point are we on?
So I'm heading towards steer point 12.
Roger. Set.
So if you look at the HSD, put it on 40 miles using the scale on the left-hand side of the HSD. On the
I've got 60 miles.
you should be able to click down one button to 40.
I've got 30.
If you look on the left-hand side, look on the. Oh really? Oh, that's because I'm on centre. If you go to the top left-hand button on the top row,
Yep.
click that, and it should say then centre underneath it, or CEN.
Correct.
That then changes your scale. Now you can have 40 miles, so you'll be looking at the same as me.
Okay, got it.
With the aircraft centred, you get better situational awareness if you're in a fight. It also means everything is slightly closer in if you want to do the really close formation stuff, because you can get down to 10 miles instead of 15. Anyway, so the next steer point we'll turn left. At steer point 13 we turn left again. Steer point 14 should be the runway. So for an overhead brake we will fly runway heading at 1500 feet, 360 knots. At the threshold we will do a brake to the right. Obviously I go first, you count 3 seconds, then you brake. We do it from close echelon, so you want to be echeloned on my left as you are, because we're doing the overhead brake to the right. And then the procedure with the jet is you chop the throttles as you do the brake. You try and maintain 1500 feet, but the speed will bleed off. You'll drop below 300, use your air brakes, and if necessary add more power until you're doing the downwind leg at 1500 feet, and you can lower your gear below 300, and you want to be at the point where you want to turn finals at around about 220 knots. Turn finals, one big arcing loop all the way around to touchdown on the runway. You want to be crossing the threshold at about 180 knots, flaring and touching down shortly thereafter. Aero brake, apply your brakes, and then we always try to go to the end of the runway officially. It's cold side right at Vaziani for the direction we're coming in, so get to the right as soon as you can, so that anybody coming in behind you who has to do a bolter, using the naval term, they can use the left hand side of the runway to go around again if necessary. and then we'll come off at the end and park up at the end. Does that make sense?
2.
My speed control's off because I'm having to use a button that's not on my throttle, so I can't talk and adjust my throttle at the same time.
By the way, how do you set the steer points to auto so they automatically click over to the next one?
Press button number 4, steer point.
Got it.
Then dobber right.
Nothing's
Rob,
happening.
No, nothing's happening. Why didn't that work?
Currently, I've got the 2 stars over steer point 12, and it's in manual. So how do I set it to auto?
I forgot. I used to know how to do this.
All right, not to worry.
Hardly ever do it. Hang on.
But this has been in manual default, so must be a way of.
Yeah, there is. It should be able to change it to auto. I just thought it was normal sequence right once you're at steer point, and that should change it. But for some reason, it's not working anymore. That's all you have to do normally. So I don't know. We'll have to explore that one. Sorry.
Okay.
Right, we're 6 miles from the steer point. We're going to have to do a combat descent because we've been talking too long. So I'm going to roll inverted to the left, pull down, and get down to lower altitude. Are you ready?
2.
Turning the next to steer point 13.
Altitude. Altitude.
Well, that was exciting. Okay, push uniform stud 3.
2.
As on approach, this is Dodge 1 plus 2 F16s inbound for landing. Approaching from the south at 5 miles out. Okay. Sorry. Push 3. No, that's right. That's tower, not approach. I used the wrong one. Okay, stud 3. No, 2 is tower, isn't it? Very confused. Okay, push stud 2 for tower.
2.
And descending for 1500. Try and maintain 360 knots. Do it off the rad out. We'll get a bit low units to the lenses, so we'll go a little bit higher than 1500. Baziani Tower, Dodge 1 plus 2 F16s inbound from the south for an overhead brake and landing. Final steer point. Runway heading is 310, so I'm going to have to come left a bit to align with it.
Altitude.
Okay, so approaching at what will be roughly 50 brake to the right. Once you cross the threshold, I will go first, then you give it 2 to 3 seconds, then you go call it on uniform. Dodge 1-2's on the brake.
Choosing the brake.
We're a bit low here. Good indication of the right distance to be apart is to fly down just the left-hand side of this river. A heading of Runway, typical for the runway.
Two finals, go down.
Dodge 1-1, turning finals to land, gear down.
Dodge 2-1. Gear down, finals to land.
One is cold side right.
Whoa. Choose cold side right.
Dodge 1-2, taxi to parking area. Dodge 1-1, taxi to parking area.
One is clearly active.
Choose clear the active.
As the only tower, Dodge 1 is clear of the active, switching to ground. Push uniform, stop 1. park up at the grass on the right. I'll turn in just like we did earlier for the end of runway checks. You should put them to my right.
2.
Okay. Let's jump out the jets, jump out the sun.
Two.
We'll have a look through the taxi.